board meeting for Ignite CDA, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. If we'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance that Tony will be leading us in.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Now is the time for public comment.
motion first, or?
Yeah, first we do need a motion, please, of some board action to remove agenda item 7B. That proposal didn't come through.
So moved to remove 7B.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now, public comment. Seeing none, I would entertain some board action for approval of last month's board meeting minutes.
I move to approve the October 18, 2017 board meeting minutes of Ignite.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any corrections or additions, or all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Keeping up with us?
I'm with you.
Moving fast.
Now we will open the public hearing for the sale of our surplus lots on the North Park Drive subdivision. So the public hearing is now open.
And what I'll do is I'll give a little background for everybody to kind of refresh everybody's memory. So if you can look to the screen. This is the Memorial Park area, and this is the 10-lot subdivision that we are talking about that fronts North Park Drive. And the way these lots fall out in numbers, this is that same area but depicted lot 1 is on the top and lot 10 is on the bottom. So that's how they are numbered. And as you recall, last month the board approved this schedule for the offering the lots for sale as they were appraised by lot. So you see lot 1's listed all the way through lot 10 at the price that was approved. So that's the background on this public hearing.
And that's minimum bids.
Minimum bids, yes.
Yes, sir.
Public comment?
And
Brad?
and how are we selling these in, let's see, individually? I'm trying, or is this,
Individually, and they'll go out to sealed bid.
yeah, okay.
That'll be-
And if one buyer buys them, we offer, the minimum bid would be $1,861,000, is that correct?
If one buyer buys them, it'd be, at the individual lots, it'd be 2.1 million.
So.
They'd have to buy them individually.
Value to a single purchaser should not be on there then.
But that's just from last, that's just a minute from last month's
Okay, so
minutes.
I was
Yeah.
just clarifying.
Oh, yeah.
So that we don't confuse anybody.
No,
That if a
correct.
single buyer came in and offered to buy all 10 lots, they couldn't offer for 1.861.
Correct.
Okay, just clarifying that.
Oh, that's a good point to clarify.
Any public comment on this? Questions?
How many are you buying?
Just one.
I just need to close the public hearing.
Then the public hearing is now closed. And we'll need some board action then to proceed with this, to go ahead.
So I kind of drafted a draft motion. I think the main elements of it are that the board would give direction to seek a solicit sealed bid for the 10 lots sold as individual lots at the lot prices listed in the appraisal, which total $2.1,210,1000, with sealed bids to be opened at the January 17th, 2018 board meeting. I think we'll need that time because of the subdivision plating process, I think, is supposed to be finalized December 11th. And once we get that, we'll go out and start advertising. And so we're suggesting maybe we look at the January board meeting to open sealed bids. We could go longer if you'd like to get more time, but that's just the options you have.
I'm not set any one way on this, but, and I know we can't legally market property until we have final plat. There's a state law pertaining to that. But I'm just wondering, we're going through probably the most unique time of the year where everybody goes on holiday for about 3 or 4 weeks over the end of December into early January. So do we want to open bids in January or wait till February? Or what date in January would it be?
It'd be the 17th.
17th.
I think February would be possibly a better, give more time for people to really think it through and plan it.
Yeah, I'm just posing that for discussion. I'm not set one way or the other. And then I think you had a good point about marketing it and getting it out to all the, probably the right people so that gets out and everyone knows about it.
Could I just ask a question? I guess I'm still, after last month, I'm still a little uncertain of how the process is going to go. And Tony, maybe you can clarify this. So hypothetically, let's say somebody decides they want to buy one of these lots. Who are they going to make the offer to? Is it going to be to Ignite? And we will be the one that does all the closing? Are we going to use a title company for closing? Are we going to close, Danielle, are you going to do the closing on it?
We'll use the title company.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll draft the purchase and sale agreements, and so we'll presumably get a pile of Lot 1 bids, and then a pile of Lot 2 bids, and then we'll just open those up and we'll award it to the highest, and then we'll, assuming they meet all the requirements and we negotiate with them within the period for the purchase and sale agreement, we'll move forward with them, and if not, we would move to the second.
So, once again, hypothetically, let's say we see the minimum bid that they can offer. Let's say we get 5 bids, they're all at the minimum bid. How are we going to choose?
There's a provision in there for them to escalate up if they want to.
So it's
hopefully-
a sealed bid and then an auction.
Sort of, I mean,
Well, they have to put in a secondary bid if it's
Right.
a tie.
Right, but I'm saying, and then it becomes an auction, the next highest bid thereafter. I'm just trying to look
Right,
at the
right.
process here of if somebody was making an offer on this, what the process is going to be. I mean, because we've never been, in this agency has never been the seller in this method, as far as I know.
Well, we sold our,
Just sold one on,
Sherman Avenue, we went through that process.
Right, but once again, it was one piece of,
One
one
piece.
parcel versus 10.
Right.
A little different situation.
What, oh, go ahead, I thought you were done.
No, I'm done.
He's got a good point there. So what I see happen a lot of times on REO properties and different things, and also private real estate business. So if you got multiple offers on one lot, we could just take the highest and best offer if it's over the minimum. Or we could have a provision, sometimes they'll put it out and say there's multiple offers, everybody make your highest and best offer. So we got a couple options right
I don't think
there.
the statute really gives us the authority to, I don't know, I'd have to look at that. I'd be more comfortable staying with them just like giving an escalation clause as part of the bid package. That's the way we have it designed. So they say, if you're at a tie, how much would you escalate your bid? I can
Okay,
actually look at the language. So it's sort of the same thing. But I think, I don't know about like going back out without
I'm
another
just asking,
notice.
I
I don't
think-
know. I'd have to look at that in the statute.
yeah, I'm just asking, these, brought up a good point.
And
So-
if there's lots left over after the opening in January, February, whenever we do that, what's the process at that point in time of liquidating those lots? Let's hypothetically say there's no bids on a lot.
The statute allows, after you have gone through the surplus bid property, for you to sell it however you deem fit. So you
We
could
don't have
go
to sell at
through,
minimum bid at that point in time.
right.
Okay.
So we could list,
Can you use a listing agent at that time?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, the statute gives you pretty broad authority once you've gone through the public auction process. So you've offered it that way to everyone, and if no one bids, you have authority to do it as you see fit.
so that's good.
So just a question on if this is kind of like a regular real estate transaction, and remind me who would end up paying for closing costs like title insurance and that kind of thing?
That's addressed in there as well, but we typically put those obligations on the purchaser.
Do you?
It's not a typical transaction,
No, I understand.
It's far from. Yeah.
Far from typical.
Yeah, and once again, I kind of go back to what we have up there on the screen, a bulk purchaser, and I know I kind of beat this drum to death last month, but as a bulk purchaser, they're taking on all the risk versus us possibly being left over with excess property. I mean, I think there's a couple of lots we could all look at and say, they're not quite as desirable as the other ones. you think there's any discussion, or could we have any discussion on giving a discount for a bulk purchase versus one-offs? Or does that even not fit into the statute?
Well, we already adopted the resolution setting the process and fixing the minimum bids for the properties, and we noticed the public hearing on that basis.
Okay,
So I think we would have to
cannot
go back
retract.
through
Okay,
that
that's fine.
process.
I just was looking at what we stated on the screen up there about a bulk purchase, which personally I think is, gives a bulk buyer the ability to, have some skin in the game, so to speak, as far as profit goes. And it also takes on the good with the bad. I'm really concerned that there's a couple of lots that we may not get minimum bid on. And then we could be stuck with, a couple of lots that are, waiting to be sold at whatever value. And it might end up being a discount versus selling all 10 of them as a block and let the developer then work to, take care of all of those. It's just my concern, but as long as we've already, put it out for, the bid that way, we just need to move on now. Okay.
You could also decide to hold them, just a suggestion, because, you're able to dispense them as you see fit after that. So if you had a couple, you could wait a year or something too, I don't know.
Yeah, we just have the cost of carrying them at that point in time.
So you got some good points. What I would say from my experience, when you're selling lots in any subdivision, there's always more choice lots than other ones. And so, the choicer ones go first, but, as people come along and want to buy the lots, they go, well, gosh, I wish I could have had that one, but that's gone, so, I'll take this one. And you'll find that the less desirable lots get whittled down as the people come along. And I think we just, this is new territory for us. I guess we see what happens when we open the bids. If we're going to do it January 17th, that's fine. And if we got the option to list these with a broker, and then they get put maybe into the MLS, and I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's a lot of options here. Unless something happens and there's some kind of a catastrophe that crashes the economy, I don't think we'll have trouble selling these next year. Spring comes on, things are going to get better and better, I think, and most everybody I talk to is pretty optimistic about the economy, so, I'm not that worried. If we got 5 or 6 sold and we still had a few left, I think we'll sell them this spring.
The one thing that is different with this, Brad, is that typically in a subdivision, you're right, if this lot's sold, then the buyer can say, well, if that's sold, I'll go to the next one.
Uh-huh.
In a bid process like this, they won't know that. So we're going to see the bids, and we're going to see a one-time
Right.
open the bids, these ones were sold, these ones were not sold, maybe, who knows, maybe they'll all be sold. But if there's some that are sold, then we don't have a great fallback mechanism other than listing them, or I guess that's our only fallback at that point in time.
Right, and I think that would work, because we could still offer them, and someone that didn't get their lot they wanted, there might be these 5 other lots that didn't sell, and they can throw an offer on one of them. So
Okay.
if we got the latitude, to list them or do whatever we want to do, I think we'll get rid of the lots.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any, you're in real estate, Steve, what, you have any opinion on
I
that?
think the market will determine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with Deanna. I think an extra month. I don't think the time pressure, Tony, is an extra month is probably not going to be that big of a difference to it, but so I agree that giving us an extra month would be good.
Was that a motion by Deanna and a second then by
I'll make that motion,
It's February, yep.
February is the
February
date.
open?
What
changing
would the
the,
date be?
I don't have my calendar up, so I don't know.
I can look.
let me find out in just a minute here.
Third Wednesday, February.
The February meeting, 21st.
February 21st, 2018. Okay?
It'll give us a chance maybe to advertise a couple of times. or-
Okay. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Committee reports. Finance Committee, Commissioner Harmon.
Well, I brought my glasses this time, so you don't have to correct me for the small print. First of all, let's look at the financials. In the Lake District, looking at the balance sheet. Not a terribly busy month, but under the balance sheet and the assets, the Lake District experienced a $118,810 decrease in cash assets from the September month end. Receivables due from the River District is payroll related to the audit journal entry from fiscal year 16, not received from Magnus McHugh until third quarter of 17 here. So that was just a cleanup thing. Other assets, the Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve account had $27 earned interest on the account balance for the month of October. Under the liabilities and fund balance, the mortgage and notes payable line item had a decrease of $5,811 for October, which represents a standard month of debt service. All other liability parameters were either unchanged or normal for the month, including a 2% credit to the due to arts line item due to the county increment check received in October. Moving on to the P&L, Lake District received $26,942 in tax increment revenue from the county in October. Professional fees line item value includes payments to Welsh Comer for $14,375 and to Avista for $12,720 for the North Park Drive subdivision project. All other P&L expenditure items were normal for the month. Moving on to the River District and the balance sheet, the assets, the River District experienced a $251,387 decrease in cash assets from the September month, due primarily to the payments on the Saltese Way revitalization project, and all other assets were either no change for September. The liabilities and fund balance due to the Lake District is payroll-related audit journal entry for fiscal year 2016 not received until third quarter of 17. All other liability parameters were either unchanged or normal, including the 2% due to the arts. In the River District P&L, River District received $7,537 in tax increment revenue from the county in October. Agency funded line item reflects a $246,174 payment made to the Southeast Way project. All other P&L expenditures line items are either normal for the month. So that is the financial report for the Lake and River Districts for the last month. Now, moving on to payables. There's much activities going on, and because our meeting's early this month, I think there's a relatively small amount here. First of all, we have for legal payments for Elam and Burke, $1,287.50. A good portion of that was for the Atlas Mill Site purchase opportunity there. Holly Troxel for $4,828. $2,684, general legal counsel and legislative issues and public records requests. $1,946 for the parking garage legal work, and $198 for the URD, or for the district expansion planning. We had a $50,000 payment to the city of Coeur d'Alene. This is reimbursement to the Museum of North Idaho for the donation for the Curl property, which is the property we just talked about with the Park Drive subdivision. Next is the Cannon Hill Industries, $80,000 building demolition over on the site for the parking garage, and then asbestos testing and samples and remediation there for $2,130 for a total payment to Cannon Hill for $82,130. The audit adjustment we talked about was a transfer to the Lake, from the River District to the Lake District for $34,229. Saltese Way roadway revitalization project, payment of $248,759.72 to contractor T, the Riviere, for payment on the project for October work. And that is all the payments we have received in so far for the month of October. So the total is $421,234.22 for this month.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion.
Well, just a question on the, trying to remember on the cash flow, do we get our county tax revenue in like 2 large lumps a year and then smaller, or equal 12, or?
No.
We get reimbursements every month, but we get 2 big ones every year.
Yeah, after
Following people
tax.
pay their taxes the month
Okay.
after.
Typically January, July.
And then throughout the year, we get little payments as they, people catch up or whatever.
I'll entertain a motion to,
I have a question. The $50,000 for the Museum of North Idaho donation, that's being held by the city, is that correct?
The city paid that to the museum,
Oh, they did.
and so they're asking us to reimburse them as the board agreed
So
to do.
that's how that worked.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I would move for approval of the payables and the financial statement
Thank you.
Second?
for October through November 2017.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Thanks, Mr. Arman. Mr. Jordan, parking.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, on the City Parking Commission, I don't have a lot to report. Over the winter, they'll be doing some studies and looking at some locations for bike corrals, and we've kind of learned a few things along the way, and they're going to be kind of focusing on some areas where it's kind of too small of an area to park a car there, but it could be good for a bike corral, so we don't take away parking spots. And then just kind of doing some general overviews of the parking procedures and starting to do some planning towards having 2 parking structures and that sort of thing. So that's about all I have for that. And on the city, on the Ignite parking team for the parking structure, I think that email that Tony sent everybody for an update today, was pretty comprehensive. If you have any particular questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll try to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'll look towards Tony and see if he can help me. Oh, looks like we're off the hook, Tony.
Well, we did sign the contract today. That's going to the builder that he should sign tomorrow and and then that will be in his hand when? By Friday?
The permit is already in our hands. It's just getting him the notice to proceed is when they can start getting on the ground.
There was, I guess, decision hasn't been made on security doors or cameras or individual items like that. Is there a timeline for that, or?
We've asked the city to kind of get that to the team and the contractor by February.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a lot of hoops to jump through on starting a public works project, but depending how things go with the weather, I'm thinking we're probably looking at later summer completion.
Question, and Steve, I think you'd probably be able to answer this better than anybody. Now that we're going to have the extra space, or the spaces in the parking garage, how big of a geographic area, say radius around the parking garage, would we be able to have those spaces effectively be the spaces that would be used for a development or a building, like on Lakeside or Sherman, or, is there a geographic range? There's some of those buildings that don't have proper parking with
Right.
current code.
And most of those buildings, as long as you don't increase the footprint over a certain percentage of the existing building, because it's within the downtown core, you don't have to provide additional parking per code. But if you do go beyond that footprint and add more space, let's say if you're going to add space to a certain building,
Sure.
then you'd have to provide more parking. I don't know, that'd be a good question for Hillary and her team to know how far away that is and how people would utilize the parking garage to construct more things. So that would be a planning question. I'd be happy to, I'll get the answers to that, and then I'll get that to Tony.
Okay, I appreciate it. I was just thinking about that the other day, because there seems to be, there's a lot of potential lots around there. They're either vacant or, small buildings on them that could be, scraped or whatever. And I was wondering just, what's the reach? How far can you say? Is it 2 blocks away, or does it have to be, somewhere consistent?
Yeah, I'll get an answer
I
from Hillary.
appreciate that, thank
Yeah.
you.
There in the downtown core, there's also a fee in lieu of provision too, that they can pay.
It's up to $10,000 per space, or?
It's 10,000, somewhere in that
Yeah.
10,000
Actually, what I'm
range.
thinking too is more, say, west and north. You start looking at some of those spaces, either, away from Lakeside there, where there's really nothing right now. Some of them are parking
I think
lots.
they're trying to take some of the burden from McEwen too.
Sure.
On those monthly parking passes and place them over in that garage.
Yeah, one of the things the Parking Commission is looking at is, we've been pretty successful with monthly parking passes at McEwen, and so we're kind of looking at the balance of how many monthly passes there should be versus open spots, for the public to
Yeah.
use. And so that's one of the things they're looking at, and the lakeside, the Coeur d'Alene Avenue structure should take some of the load for the monthly passes off of McEwen and open some more up there. And I know there's people, looking at that structure. I know a lot of the people at Nick Smoot's the old Elks building there, the Tech Development Center, they're looking at, having some parking there and leasing some spots. So, yeah, there's a lot of things in process.
Okay, thanks.
Opportunities.
Absolutely, that's what I'm thinking of.
That's the idea, yeah. It's always been kind of sleepy at that end of the downtown, so hopefully this is a linchpin.
This is a Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter, yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Jordan?
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Next item is the Executive Director Report, and just remember, item 7B has been removed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first off, the first topic is the engineering services request for qualifications, and we have a board recusal. Commissioner Metz is recusing herself from participating in any discussion or decision regarding this agenda item because a family member is affiliated with one of the engineering firms who submitted an SOQ.
So I just wanted it to reflect on the record that refusal and that she met the requirements of the ethics and government law.
Good job.
Bring it up with the ethical.
So just to refresh everybody's memory, the board kind of appointed an ad hoc committee to look at the submittal of qualifications per the RFQ, and that committee consisted of members Hoskins, Garcia, and Chapkus. And through the process, we received 4 engineering SOQs, submittal of qualifications, from Welch Comer Engineers, TO Engineers, HMH Engineering, and JUB Engineers. The committee members utilized criteria that was contained in the RFP to evaluate the engineering firms, and they came up with a recommendation to the full board that the board consider the following ranking of the top 3 engineering firms as number 1, Welch Comer Engineers, number 2, JUB Engineers, and number 3, TO Engineers. Any other comments from the
Deanna?
I have a question. I was kind of looking at the minutes of that ad hoc committee, and I realized that one of the criteria was, expertise in existing projects. How did that read?
The criteria were firm history and capability to perform the project, relevant project experience, qualifications of project team, familiarity with the area and work scope, and project approach. Those were the 5 categories of criteria.
Which I certainly don't have any objection to your choices, but I wonder, Welch Comer has done most of the work there, so they would have a kind of a step up on those particular qualification points. Did the committee take that into account at all?
Yes. Each one of those values that Tony just gave you, there's a percentage score that we physically gave them a score then, and then when the person with the highest score got the highest, and Welch Comer happened to be the highest, and they're our number 1 choice, with JUB second and TO third. Yeah, that was definitely.
Well, they don't have to necessarily be ranked in order. It's just creating a list of 3, and then you can select from those 3 who
Right.
best meets the needs for the project. So it's not like you have to go to Welch Comer every time. If there's an
No, we can
expertise
use
at one
any of the top 3
Right.
choices.
Correct.
Right, they're all like
Projects.
pre-approved.
I
for
really
future
like to kind of
projects.
spread things around if we can,
Absolutely.
and support all businesses in the community.
Yeah, JUB did a lot of projects over the years in our districts,
You bet.
so they're a pretty good resource
And
too. All right, that's
TO?
good choices.
TO Engineering, they're kind of new, they got a lot of experience in the aerospace and I guess, arena. They do have some relevant experience, but they haven't done a whole lot of project, I think, in the Coeur d'Alene area
I
specifically.
think they've done a lot in Hayden.
Yes.
Yeah, surrounding community, right.
Great.
So
We would need a
board
motion.
action on that to approve that, the
Approve the
ad
recommendation.
hoc committee's recommendation.
I move to approve the recommendation of the ad hoc committee on engineering services.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Then following are just some initiative updates on projects. I think Phil Boyd has joined us. He's going to give us an update on Memorial Park. Welcome, Phil.
Welch Comer Engineers. Okay, and I was also going to give, and hopefully I didn't catch you off guard, I was going to give a little bit of an update on the Ignite Park Drive subdivision as well.
Excellent.
If that's okay? So I'll start with the Park Drive subdivision, just to give you a snapshot of where we're at and where we're headed. The improvements completed to date, all the underground work is completed, and the surface work remains to be completed. The project will essentially shut down here for a winter shutdown, and we'll complete the alleyway and the sidewalk in the spring, along with the final berm grading. That's just a picture of the, where the sidewalk used to be. One of my guys took that and so put it in there. This is a picture of the berm. If you might remember, the berm was an important component to separate the subdivision lots from the future skate park area and the park area. You can see it is roughly graded in this image here, these two images.
So what's the elevation of it?
The actual, off of NAD, 80, 88. No, you mean just how much higher is it than the adjoining property?
Yeah, I don't mean the slope, but I mean the,
It'll be 5 to 6 to 7 feet taller than the lots on
Right.
the west side. And then on top of it, Commissioner Jordan, there'll be landscaping with trees on it. And then on the alleys, there'll also be a little bit of a rock wall, and at the top of the rock wall will be a vinyl-coated black fence. And it's something that Tony and I and the contractor have been working on to meet both aesthetic requirements and sound buffering and whatnot. So it should be quite attractive. We work with Bill, I left Bill Greenwood out, but Bill Greenwood's been a big part of it.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a question on those 10 lots. Some of those would come with the ability to waive any sewer and water cap fees because there's existing structures there?
Yes, and I should know this off the top of my head, but I want to say 9 out of the 10. And that's a good point, that we should document that information by lot. So when the offering goes out, we can make sure that is included in it.
So those lots would have, this, I'm just saying this off the top of my head, but the sewer cap fee is $3,000 some dollars, the water is $25. So it could mean $5,700 per lot that you already have those cap fees paid. So it could add additional value to a lot if someone builds.
Yep, that's a good point, and we'll get that information to you, Tony, so you can make it part of your solicitation.
Good point.
Good advertisement. Mr. Arm?
So you say construction's going to shut down here relatively soon?
Yeah, yes, and I'll hedge that a little bit, because the contractors, as you can imagine, they're all very busy. And I think what their plan is, what they've told us in the previous weeks, we're meeting with them again tomorrow, is they may sneak in and do pieces of work when the weather permits and the subgrade's properly dried out. So, for instance, that sidewalk picture we showed you earlier, they might jump in there and finish some of that sidewalk if it doesn't require too much blanketing and whatnot.
But between now and February, when we open the bids, will lot lines be established and those types of things so that purchasers could have a pretty good idea of what the lot lines look like? And
We could flag them,
okay.
yeah.
I'm trying to think
Yeah.
if we're going to market this from now till February, we want to have a pretty good idea of what they're buying.
I think you got an excellent point. They probably need to be flagged, and we probably need to make some signs that have the lot number on them
Yeah.
and make this as simple as we can.
Should we flag the building envelopes too?
That might, well, we could. It starts to turn into a forest.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a forest of lath out there, and it gets a little bit confusing. But maybe what we'll do is we'll do one, and we can get with you, Tony, do one with both all the lot corners, and then flag one building envelope, and you can look at it and decide if you want the rest of them done. Something like that.
For realtors, we got to make it as simple as possible.
Different color string in the lath for them. Mr. English?
Well, question on, when you mention the alley, and I'm thinking old downtown alley, is this more like a paved access road? Is it an actual alley? Is it public?
It will be a public paved
Alley.
alley,
Okay.
yeah. It'll be a little more tidier, probably than what you're customarily seeing, because there's, all the power is buried. So there's no overhead power. The transformers are set off to the side. On the east side will be the berm with a rock wall and a fence along it, and then the landscaping on top of it. So, back to your point earlier about, delaying the sale, we may want to produce a little sketch that shows what it looks like. Because if you go out there now and look at it, to Commissioner Arman's point, you're going to say, gosh, I don't know that I
Yeah.
understand what this looks like. And we have some renderings that we could touch up a little bit and produce a little bit of a packet of information.
A glossy brochure.
Yeah.
I think an architectural rendering would be great, or landscape architect rendering's probably really important on those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, let's see. On the entitlement process, I wanted to give a little bit of an update. Tony talked about some of it earlier. The zone change actually is headed to the city council on the 21st. So I'll attend that and present to city council. Assuming that the council approves it, it'll come back to city council for them to actually sign the ordinance. So the public hearing is on the 21st. They'll take public testimony. They'll make a decision. If they approve it, then the ordinance is prepared. It comes back on December 5th. As Tony mentioned, shortly after that, we'll record the final plat. Because the alley and some of the sidewalk are not complete, traditionally, a developer has to bond for the improvements to the city. And I think Danielle and Tony are working through whether Ignite really has to bond to the city, because I think Danielle pointed out an exception to the rules. So, but we're just getting prepared for all those things. And then Tony mentioned the dates to you earlier. I took these off of some earlier correspondence. It sounds like you're going to move the bid opening date. So that'll be moving forward. This is the pro forma that you've seen before. Tony and I have been working on updating it, and the one thing that we did here is we updated it with the lot values that you saw earlier. We've also been updating all the costs as we're incurring them. So everything that you see in white are fixed numbers. What you see in yellow is what we're still waiting to get a number on. And you can see the profit down here at the bottom, which has gone up higher than what earlier pro forma that you saw. So I think the actual money that would be coming back to Ignite would be the sum of that number and that number, because you own the property.
So, can I ask you a question? So that bottom number, the 468, that's profit, and most of it is return on principal, I guess, for our investment. Is that the upper number there?
Correct.
Okay.
The way I'm looking at it is just basically a cash flow issue. I mean, if we were able to realize that 2.1 million, then we just take off the 286 is really the net cash flow we're going to get from this endeavor, which.
The 286 is our development cost.
Right.
And the rest is cash in our pocket. Yeah, right, I just was asking, whether it's return on principal or not, it's money in our pocket.
Okay. And then moving on to,
Deanna?
Would it be possible for us to see this in an email format, so?
Sure.
And I have a question. We purchased, and some of the lot purchases have gone for donations to the city. That's not included in this price.
The $50,000? Yes, it's in the pro forma. So you see it there?
it's right down here.
Yeah, it's hard to see for me from here.
Yeah,
but-
so the $50,000 is in the cash flow analysis because it was a cost to us.
And we did donate that to the city to
To the museum.
the museum.
Right.
Okay, how about the house that was on the back part of the property off of Garden there? That's not included in this purchase price, is it?
No, that's going to be traded to the city as part of the Memorial Park project, and that's how we're picking up these Crow lots.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I was just trying to remember all the
Remember that,
parcels we
yeah.
purchased down there and how they fit into this process.
So in Memorial Park, the improvements completed to date, obviously you guys can visually see them, most of the utilities and the retaining wall, the electrical system. What we'll be working on next year is the parking lot, paving with the parking lot, the sport court surfacing, a lot of the hardscape, the restrooms in one form or another. The Garden Avenue signal may be one of those elements that you see being constructed during the winter, because it's something you can do during the winter. All the foundations are in. Most of the material is here now, and you'll probably see those things being installed soon. You also may see memorial field fencing being installed, which is a little bit surprising, but when the ground freezes hard enough, the contractor may go out there with his lift and drive on the grass, and Bill Greenwood and Del Hatch both say there's nothing wrong with that. So you may see that happening as well. Just a couple of photographs, because they say a lot. See what that looks like when we had it all cleared and ready to roll. This is obviously the new entrance, and this is the commuter trail. And one other note, that portion of the commuter trail was not part of this project. There's been lots of discussion with getting it funded through some other source, and Bill Greenwood was able to work with city staff, and that will be paved as part of this project next year. We negotiated a little bit of a better deal with the contractor, and the city came up with some money. So we will have a complete commuter trail from Fort Grounds Drive to River Avenue. A couple more pictures of the construction of the field. This is the sport court. You can see the gravel preparation. These sport courts are have to be very carefully constructed because they're very flat. And Bill's clientele get upset if they don't play correctly. So you can't imagine the amount of time spent in preparing and surveying and compacting and building that. But Interstate did a great job on putting that together.
Question, do they drain?
Yeah.
I mean, they can't be too flat.
No,
right?
they have a very, I can't remember if it's 0.5% or 1%. But then the other part of it is there's a nickel test where we flood it and you place a nickel on it, and if any of the water puddles greater than a nickel, they have to pre-level it before we put the plexi pave. It's called, what you see on the tennis courts like out here in the basketball court, it's called plexi pave. And that's all I had to report.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Welcome.
Very good, thanks.
Just a couple more updates on some of our initiatives. The Southeast Way Road revitalization, I think most of you are up to speed. If you read the paper today, they did a pretty good job of sharing that we're a little ahead of the game there. We got, I wouldn't say we got lucky, but we were very strategic in working with the contractor on really encouraging him and his crews to really get the paving done. And they've got all 4 lanes paved, and they're working on approaches, and so we'll be able to open it up this winter for travel on all 4 lanes, and come back with next year with another second lift to secure it. But this first lift will get everybody through the winter, so that's really good news. And they'll do some striping, temporary striping on the roads next week before they allow people on those northern lanes to make sure that everybody knows where the lanes are and it's clear. And they said they're going to try to get those roundabouts functional as best they can this year too. So it's looking very positive. So very encouraging.
Nice.
We're still working with Active West on the railroad right-of-way surplus property sale. We're working through several issues on the due diligence front, but that process is moving forward. And finally, Ignite at Riverstone. This was formerly referred to as the Tilford Lane Initiative. We're still working on that initiative. We have a few dominoes that need to fall first on some other parallel issues before we can continue our analysis, but there's still energy moving forward on that proposed trade for that property with the city for our Young Avenue property. So it's a steady movement.
Question on that, Tony. Just from last month, kind of hearing the problems that seem to be to line up the property lines between the 2 railroads that Active West is dealing with the UP. Is that going to be an issue when we try to bring the cities and our properties together, or will that be somewhat alleviated because we're both going to be the same agency owning both sides of it? Or how is that going to be an issue, I guess is the biggest question.
If I might be able to, I daylighted this issue to Phil and his team, because, Phil's, Welch-Comer is helping us with that.
Right.
And as I recall, his surveyor said it wouldn't be as much of an issue on that side of BB because of the amount of work that was done in initial surveys.
Okay.
But I wouldn't rule it out, but we're not expecting a major issue.
Okay.
But as we shared last week, or last month, it's almost an interesting dilemma because once those properties are combined, those internal lines go away anyway.
Right.
But you got to get the right
Yeah, but you still
people
have to
happy
have
with
them
it,
lined
right.
up before they can go away.
Right.
Last question is, we now have clearance that the remediation on our property on the east side of BB Boulevard is okay, there's no remediation necessary there, is that correct?
We're still working that. There's
Okay.
different camps out there, again.
Okay.
So we're trying to pin that down on what, if any, remediation needs to be done.
So would that then carry over to the other side on Tilford? Would there be remediation somewhat similar to the remediation?
Depends on the use. If you were to pave that and, just put a cap of asphalt or concrete on it, then there wouldn't be any need. But if you're going to utilize that site for remediation, for residential, like we're talking
Right.
about, for a certain portion of that, yes, then you probably would have to address it if that is the solution. So we're hearing mixed messages again. We're going to track that down.
Okay, so there's still uncertainty on both sides there?
Right.
Okay,
We've heard two different messages, so we're trying to really define that message here.
on my mind, it's almost like it's one piece of property, because, you got a road that goes through it now, but both railroads went through there for years, so if there's a problem being uncovered on this side, it's probably going to carry to the other side, too.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. Next item is board commissioner comments. Does any commissioner have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I just had some,
Go ahead, Steve.
as long as I can get the numbers here. This is on the Government Way project, North Government Way project. If you remember, we put it out to bid last spring, and the number came in about $800,000 over the engineering estimate, so we pulled back on that, hoping to rebid it. It was rebid, and it came in at actually about $300,000 under the engineer's estimate. So it went, that's how volatile the bidding environment is out there. So it looks like, as long as we can, there's still some I's to dot and T's to cross, but it looks like that project is moving forward and moving forward on budget. So that's good news.
So waiting saved $1 million? Over $1 million?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't have been able to spend the 5 point whatever.
Oh, you had to look at
But
saving
I like
$1
your
million.
thinking.
It's $1 million difference.
Right, $1 million difference, yeah. So that, so we'll see that project move
Is this
ahead.
the road widening project?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really necessary. Now, that will sewer and water be extended out there with this project?
There is sewer and water there already.
But not all the way through Dalton Gardens,
are.
correct?
Dalton
There- yeah.
is going to do a sewer project in connection with that project.
So there will be sewer all the way up to Prairie?
It's just on the right, so Dalton's just on the right.
Yeah, no, I know.
But yes,
So Dalton will
Will
now
be
have
sewered all the way to
developable
Prairie.
lots in their side. Okay, that's good news.
I'm glad we have
For their
smart people to
commercial.
answer those questions.
it's just commercial.
Yes.
Yeah.
But right now, it's restricted commercial, because it's all,
Right. I don't know if
I just-
I don't know how Dalton's zoning works.
well, it's,
Not
a lot of
so
it's not on sewer, so it's really restricted.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioner comments? Hearing none, this is the next item is the second time for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none,
I move we go into executive session, Idaho Code, Section 74-206, subsection 1C, to acquire interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency.
I second.
roll call, please. Mr. Burns.
Goodlander,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
Arman.
Yes.
Widmeyer,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Chapman.
We'll move into executive session.